All right, guys, I just got back in from out of town. I was over in Tulsa, Oklahoma, speaking at an event that a guy named Clay Clark put on. It was kind of a business event talking about people, how do they improve their business. And I was one of the speakers. Another guy, this guy, Tim Tebow, many of you guys know, he's was a Heisman Trophy winner, professional athlete. He's now very much an evangelical Christian sort of speaker. Does a lot of stuff with preventing child trafficking. Overall, real nice guy. Sat down with him, had lunch with him, talking about his diet. He basically eats a very low carb diet, high protein diet, lots of meat and so on and so forth. So it's good to get to meet him. I wanted to share, as I gave this presentation, I've talked about this a few times at various conferences about the most stressful moment of my entire life. And I remember that very clearly and precisely exactly when that was. It was February 27th of 2007. And what made that event stressful? It was kind of an interesting sort of scenario and dilemma, I suppose. And so I was deployed in Afghanistan, a place called Bagram, Afghanistan. We were the main referral center for all the military trauma that was coming in, and it was quite busy back in 2007. In fact, we operated every single day, all day long, and we've been used to sort of dealing with all this horrific trauma and whatnot. But on February 27th, 2007, it was an interesting day because at that time, the vice president, whose name was Dick Cheney, was visiting. Some of you guys, of course, remember that. And you can search Google, bombing Bagram, Afghanistan, February 27th, Dick Cheney. It'll pull it up. And anyway, there were about, the Taliban got wind of the fact that he was going to be there. And so they wanted to try to assassinate him. Of course, they weren't able to do that. But what they did manage to do was set off a bomb at our front gate. Now, at our front gate, there were lots of a lot of kids that used to play, little Afghan kids used to play there. They would play soccer in front. The reason they would hang out is because we would often give them food, we'd give them clothing, we would do what we could to try to improve them. This is part of this Hearts and Minds campaign, And anyway, so they succeeded in killing, 20 or 30 civilians, and they injured critically about another 30 more of them. And we got those people sort of dumped on us. And our hospital was this tiny facility. It was probably, maybe, 10,000 square feet. It was the size of a big house, basically. It was basically very poorly constructed. It was wooden like plywood walls and a tin roof. And we've been operating out of there. And so we got this massive influx of casualties. We had 2 operating rooms, I think a 4-bed ER. So we were quickly overwhelmed. And, this triage that occurs, and so you kind of triage people. And so you would put sort of black tags on people that we knew weren't going to survive. Maybe they had exposed brain material. Their injuries are otherwise so severe that there's no way they could survive. So we couldn't really spend much time with them other than, make them comfortable. But then there was the red tag group. And these are people that were critically wounded that you could potentially save. And this is typically people with internal bleeding, belly bleeding, chest bleeding. And then there were the yellow tag group, were the people that were less critically injured, people that could wait a while. These are a lot of the orthopedic injuries, broken bones, things that you could put, bleeding extremities, which you could tourniquet and things like that. And so, as an orthopedic surgeon, my job primarily was to fix all the broken bones and whatnot and all the extremity wounds. And but during these mass casualties, we would certainly lend our hands in the operating room for all the belly bleeding. And so we would be in there often assisting the general surgeons. And that's what we were doing. So we were in there, working the first 6-8 hours, just cranking away, trying to save people's lives. And early on into this mass casualty, we were in there, and I remember we were in a case, and I was assisting one of the general surgeons. We had a guy with a trauma X-lap, where basically you just make an incision from the sternum all the way down to the symphysis pubis, and just open the belly up, open the entire cavity up, and start looking what's bleeding and packing sponges in there to stop the bleeding and then to provide pressure. And then you would slowly kind of run through the bowel and look for every little thing that might be bleeding, and you cauterize it or you tie it up or clamp it, try to stop the bleeding so the person does not bleed to death immediately. And of course, the anesthesiologist is dumping in fluids and blood and things like that to resuscitate the person. So we're in the middle of this. And as you can imagine, this is quite a stressful sort of situation. You have a person basically bleeding to death in front of you, and you're trying to do everything you can. And we're probably 15 minutes into the case. We've done the X-lap's open, the guy's belly's open, and we're doing that stuff. And interestingly, one of the things that the Taliban used to do was that they would sometimes set off a bombing, and then they'd wait for the responders to show up, and then they'd blow those guys up. So there'd be a secondary bomb. So that was a sort of a known practice of theirs. And so we're in there, we're in this little tiny wooden shack hospital. And we're in the middle of the operation. There's about 5 of us in a room. There's myself, the other surgeon, scrub tech, an anesthesia provider, and then a circulating nerve who's, running around doing whatever needs to be done with the OR stuff. And someone comes in the room, and I remember they sort of kind of gently announced to us, they said, hey docs, we just found out there is another bomber in the ER, which is like literally 50 feet away from us, right? They think there's another bomber in the ER, maybe snuck in as a casualty. They would sometimes do that. They would have somebody pretend to be a casualty and then set up a secondary bomb. And so I remember that was a stressful moment. That was the most stressful moment of my life, because we remember they were like, oh my God, we're here, this guy's bleeding to death. And the guy in front of us, honestly, most likely would die because of just the nature of those wounds. It's hard to survive that, but we're doing our best to try to save these people. And somebody would likely never see again the rest of our lives. And I remember in that moment, we all just kind of looked up. And I remember Jeff, who was the surgeon, said, hey, what do you guys want to do? And we all just, all together, in unison said, let's just keep going. And I thought that was a very, it was a decision that we knew that all of our lives could be at risk. We weren't sure, the intel was kind of a little sketchy, but we knew there was a guy bleeding to death in front of us. And so, at that moment, we all decided, let's just press on and keep working. And so we did. We obviously, it's already a stressful situation, but it became a little, quite a bit more stressful. So we're working as quickly as we can. We stop the bleeding, we pack the wound, we cover him in a sterile dressing, and then we sort of wheel him back to the recovery room. And then we got the hell out. We got the hell out of Dodge. And, they had I guess they had the bomb team in there. The guys all dressed in their, explosive EOD, explosive ordnance disposal guys that were in there, trying to find bombs and protect themselves. Well, we got out and we walked into a parking lot about a quarter mile away or half mile away, whatever the distance they decided was safe for us. And it turned out that there was not a bomb, fortunately. So fortunately, no one else got hurt. But that was, again, a very stressful moment. The most stressful moment of my life, as I recall. And it was also a moment where I thought that people, it gave me hope in humanity, that people are willing to be selfless and do the right thing. So I was glad to be part of that. But that just gives me perspective in the fact that, there's tough things happen in life. I've had some tough things go at me, and people always, there's things that people will, sort of put on me, sort of do those things, sort of put obstacles in front of me, sort of put things in my way, attack me, so on and so forth, call me names. So all that stuff in perspective is relatively like, whatever, it's mild stuff. Anyway, I wanted to share that little story with you. I thought it was an appropriate thing. So, I think the reasons for that are, I think it's good to go through hard things, and it's good to see what you're made of in a way. And then it makes everything else in perspective seem relatively easy from a stress management standpoint, from a difficulty standpoint. If you can get through stuff like that, you can get through anything. All right, guys. Well, it's good to be back. I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.